morning. It feels quite nice. The last Expo, we had to have it digitally thanks to the COVID. Um, I think the COVID effect is today quite visible, that we are more than 1,000 people available right in this hall. How much we want to see each other in flesh and blood, how much we like to interact, I think is good indicator of our interest in the sector as well as what we want to do for this sector, which is now just about open. Having said that, let me begin by welcoming the dignitaries, Dr. Somnath, Dr. Goenka, the Ambassador of Netherlands, Martin van den Berg, Enrico Palermo from Australian Space Agency, Anna Shortbolt from the High Commission in Delhi, the UK High Commission in Delhi, Dr. Radhakrishnan, Dr. Sudhir Kumar, Dr. Bali Raghupati, and a whole lot of people who've been truly spending enormous amount of efforts and energy to make this event a marquee event now exactly for 14 years. So this is the 8th of this exhibition conference which we are going to be conducting for next 3 days. Today is a very special day, and I think it's quite fitting that on 5th September, when we celebrate the Teachers' Day, it's absolutely appropriate to have the dais, on the dais, whole lot of ISRO scientists. ISRO is someone who's truly performed that role of a teacher for the entire space industry. And I think before I proceed, I want you all to join to give a big hand to this teacher who's built that ecosystem of the space, especially in India, having taken it to those heights that we're truly not dependent on anyone. So this is an amazing example of Atmanirbhar. Obviously, going forward, we all see that the national leadership believes that the business and the commerce need to really take off. And towards that, we obviously have the creation of an empowering body for this, the regulator, and of course the promoter. And that's essentially where Dr. Goenka comes from. In space, there's enormous amount of effort being made so that every policy that truly will make sure that the private enterprise not only stands up on their feet running, and I must say flying. Because that's essentially where, when we talk of space, it would matter that the enterprise essentially starts taking a major role in terms of shaping what we will do in space. While we talk of the space sector, we know that this is a great integrator right across the world. And being a great integrator right across the world, everybody shares the same space. And that's essentially where it's good to have great partner countries to be present here. Today we have among, of course, the dignitaries from Australia, UK and Netherlands, but we also have many people from the world who are participating in our exhibition. And this is to that extent a macrocosm of the entire representation of the space, which essentially is present right in this hall. The formation of InSpace was, in that sense, quite a forward-looking kind of, I must say, a step for the country to have identified that we need to be taking the space sector on a different path. While India has been contributing to about 2% of the space commerce, with our kind of expertise, experience, knowledge, track record, amazing kind of success rates, it's only fitting that the space commerce that India actually would run and control ought to be much, much higher. And that's essentially where Dr. Somnath, Dr. Goenka, and the whole of ISRO and the InSpace team is actually trying to take all of us, lead us in that direction to make the space sector as a very, very thriving commerce to be done, not just within the bounds of this country, but well beyond the bounds of this nation. We have been primarily seeing very proactive work that's happening on the policy side, the vision side, actually making some of the processes and procedure, and CII having identified this sector as one of the major segments to focus on, has been very consistently for last 14 years spending time on working with Department of Space and with ISRO, and that's something which is continuing to happen. And of course, with the kind of connect that CII enjoys primarily at Delhi, we are trying to leverage these to make headway for the entire industry going forward. The National Committee of Space of CII, which I have the privilege of chairing, is essentially the one which is providing some of these guidelines to what needs to be done. CII has also been very, very closely working with NSIL, the ISRO laboratories, and of course in space, in directing various efforts that are going on right across the entire space ecosystem. And that's essentially, we see that in recent times there have been multiple policy discussions that have taken place, and of course an integrated space policy and the space bill right now is at the doors of the government for final clearances, and we hopefully shall be seeing these policies and the law that space is going to be fully open for the private enterprise, just about to be happening in times to come. When we talk of the startups, and that's essentially where enormous amount of work that needs to be done to handhold the startups. On one side, on the regulatory side, that's InSpace that's doing it. But on the CII side, there's a very thriving ecosystem that CII drives on the startups. And that's essentially where good amount of debate and discussions today are on with the government, not necessarily any one given department, but across government department, to make sure that our startups actually would get, in a way, some access to government funding, and that's essentially a work in progress while we go ahead. We have international cooperations that are playing a very significant and a major role for this sector. And CII, in first time in its history, took the space delegation to Washington, D.C. and to Los Angeles. And we've been instrumental to take people to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, visit the SpaceX, see things, go to the Caltech, to meet the various people within these research establishments, as well as to the majors like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Caltech University, USIBC, and of course building up some of those relationships which obviously would be needed to make the space commerce that much easier, and that's essentially utilizing the reach of CII in the international arena. Last year, we had a digital space expo, as I said. This year, obviously, we are going to be here. We've seen enormous amount of engagement between various industry players. That's something which has come out of the ISRO's handholding of industry, and very serious engagements with 12 ISRO centers, and of course, the international space agencies looking back. Further, series of enormous amount of future work is happening to ensure and see that the policies that formally get issued out have a kind of multiplier effect for the entire industry, including the new ones who are going to be joining in the form of startups. The Bangalore Space Expo thus becomes a marquee event, and the first of these post-COVID kind of time, with the kind of participation that we are witnessing. With this, 150 participants and of course 10 countries representing in the show. Australia has been our partner country, and of course we are glad that they are present and welcome them here. UK as a focus country and Netherlands as the guest country. So all the three, we are extremely happy that the governments of these countries and the space sectors specifically find it quite useful to have interactions with this ecosystem right in India. Nurturing the new space of India obviously means going beyond what we are doing. And that's essentially one part of what we are going to be doing in this conference of those next 3 days. People from people will speak in 9 technical sessions, 3 country sessions specific to the countries, and of course, enormous amount of interaction time with some of the startups themselves choosing to speak, and 10 of them will be seeing, actually talking and presenting what exactly they are doing in this sector. 6 MOUs are likely to be exchanged, and that's what is scheduled during the event. And of course, between the Indian and foreign companies, we are seeing some of these getting exchanged. I must reiterate that Mr. Bali from the southern region has been providing the right kind of impetus, because space is headquartered in Bangalore, and that's essentially where enormous amount of interaction right with InSpace, although InSpace is headquartered in Ahmedabad, but the offices of InSpace that are here, ISRO, as well as the NSIL and various other sort of major establishments that have a say in terms of what will happen in space. On that note, let me welcome you all once again, and must reiterate, seeing people is a kind of thing that gives all of us at CII a very, very special kind of energy. Nice to have all of you right in this hall, and wish you all great times over next 3 days. Do all kind of interaction. Anything specifically that comes up which need to be debated, discussed, put up to the higher ups in various establishments at CII, we would be there to support you, help you out, and carry your voice to where it matters. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.